All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Andrew. Andrew, now I'm going to remember. I'm going to ask you again how to pronounce. I asked you last time we spoke, and then now I just forgot. And so,
It's a terrifying last name. It's technically phonetical. It's Crapuchettes. But
crap,
when you
you
start to
shit.
read that and you read crap and then you and then Shetts, you wonder where's this going to go. And so, no, I'm not worried at all. You're not the first to ask. And my sweet wife even took the last name. So, no, it's Andrew
Kudos
Crapuchettes.
to
I'm
her,
grateful to be
right?
here. Yeah, exactly.
So, well, I'll tell you, you and I, we got to have a conversation before, and of course, I want to start off by just giving a shout out to Kurt Ludhart because without Kurt, you and I wouldn't even be talking right now.
That's right.
And I got connected with Kurt through actually, Kurt I got connected with from a platform called Interview Valet. And I've
Oh,
had a really great experience with those guys, and they're kind of like a PR firm that helps people like Kurt and his wife Kristen get on podcasts and stuff.
yeah,
And that's
for
how I
sure.
met them. But I'll tell you, after interviewing Kurt, man, what an amazing guy that is, and just doing such an amazing things in this world. Him and his wife both, and after his interview, he's like, Kevin, he's like, you need to interview Andrew for your podcast. And so you and I made time to connect, get to know each other a little bit. And I'm like, yep, Andrew, Kurt's right. If you're game, I'm in. I'd love to do this. And so here we are. And I have been looking forward to this. And what I'd like to do is just kind of start off. I just want to turn it over to you, Andrew,
Yeah.
and so that we can set a little bit of context. We can let our listeners know a little bit about, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you guys are doing, the impact you're making at Red Balloon, and we'll
Yep.
just start there.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Well, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm also grateful to Kurt. He's actually introduced me to a number of wonderful people. You're clearly one of the top that he's introduced me to,
Well,
but
thanks for
wonderful,
that.
wonderful people all around. Yes. So yeah, quick background. I've kind of been in technology for a long time. Started in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Grew up in the dot-com world. Moved up to Idaho 25 years ago, and have started a whole variety of businesses. In fact, I've done 6 successful exits over the years, which is just a fun adventure. It's kind of fun putting the puzzle pieces together, building businesses from scratch. I've always had this passion around building jobs and prosperity for individuals. And so businesses are just, the way that I do that. Some people love nonprofits. I love creating nonprofit businesses that are where I can go and employ people, develop people, manage people, turn them into a better version of themselves, and help them make money for themselves and for their family in the process. That's what I do for a hobby. So I've done that for quite a few years. I kind of hit a bit of a roadblock in 2020 when I was running about a $50 million business that I'd helped start, but didn't own very much of anymore because it's fun to sell businesses, but then you don't control them anymore. So 2020 rolls around and the world was kind of in a funny place. And my board
Yep.
decided that I was too conservative and Christian for their liking. And so I found myself delightfully unemployed, which, it's okay. It's part of the story. Wasn't my favorite moment, but turns out that it was the moment that ended up being a good thing, right? Most good stories have to have kind of the whether it's a tragedy or a tension or whatever it is for you to be able
Yep.
to resolve it. So that was my tragedy or my tension, however you want to call it. And so I was going to take a year off. I'm doing a housing development. I've got a bunch of other things going, but I realized, I was just given a choice between my job and my values. And I don't need everyone to agree with my values, but I do want people to be free, free to be themselves at work, free to bring their whole self to work. And I really wasn't given that option. And so I thought, how can I get that option to as many other people as possible? So my two options were how can I start a business and employ as many people as possible? When you think in the hundreds of thousands or millions, it's like, well, unless I'm going to be Walmart, I'm probably not going to be able to bless a million people by just employing a million people because I'll probably go bankrupt in the meantime. So what's plan B? Well, how do I connect people with businesses who also think like I do, where freedom is an imperative to great work and great creativity in the workplace? And so that's where we decided to do Red Balloon. My brother and I actually kind of on a weekend sat down in my basement and said, let's build a pro freedom job board. And I have a tech background, and he's way better at tech than I am. And so we knocked out a job board, we put it out there. And it's been an incredible journey, Kevin. We have been able to help thousands of businesses and tens of thousands of job seekers find each other, right? Just think of it as matchmaking for employment. And the reason that it's been so gratifying is because when we have this thesis around freedom, around hard work, around meritocracy, and our businesses share that, and our job seekers share that, well, they're able to find each other. And our businesses are saying, look, everybody I hire from Red Balloon is cleansing to my culture. They're just hardworking people who don't want to bring their axe to grind or their political correctness in the office. They actually just want to show up, work really, really hard, and then go home to their families, which honestly wasn't that weird not that long ago. But right now is something that's very, very valuable in the marketplace. So we start doing this for businesses through the job board. Then we start doing it through recruiting services. And then I start getting these thank you notes from perfect strangers, job seekers who found a job through Red Balloon. They found it with a business who believe in freedom. They believe in hard work. They believe in meritocracy. And lo and behold, these job seekers are saying, hey, I just wanted to know, I found a job. I love the job, but it has changed the trajectory of my family, or it's saved my marriage, or I'm engaged with my community again, or I'm going to church again. I had one single mom write me and say, I just wanted you to know I got a new job through Red Balloon about 3 weeks ago. Dream job, love the job. But I came home after 3 weeks in the new job, and one of my two boys says to me, Mommy, you're not angry anymore. And she's like, Oh no, I was like angry, Mommy, right? You feel that, like, and you don't want to be that person. And she realized when you're in the middle of an 8 to 10 hours a day of working in a job where you're just badly misaligned with kind of worldview and what you're trying to accomplish, the mission and the vision of the business. When you have that, it's going to have a deep and profound impact on every other area of your life, and you probably won't see it. And I think that was the big revelation that came to me, is you don't even know how much it's affecting you because you're in the middle of it, right? It's the water you swim in, it's the air that you breathe. And then all of a sudden you get out of that. You find a job where you can be free, and it changes everything. And so that is really where the passion is for Red Balloon today, is how do we help people find places where they can show up, do really good work, be free, gain autonomy and mastery, and all the things that made America great in the first place, without some of the political correctness that I think has been sucking a lot of the joy out of work in
Yeah.
America. So that's what Red Balloon is. That's what we're excited about. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Well, that's a pretty awesome story, Andrew. and and what a beautiful thing to kind of you're kind of playing matchmaker for
That's
these
right. That's
companies
right.
and for these employees. And I love the whole thing of just aligning them on values and stuff, and because I know in my world, values, that's everything. That is
That's right.
everything. When we align on values, and when we make, as entrepreneurs, we make a real meaningful connection with people, it's really easy to do business together from there.
That's exactly right. That's
And
exactly right. Well,
yeah.
and people talk about diversity in the workplace, and I actually think diversity is really good, right? I want people who push back on me as the CEO. In fact, I've had a lot of employees. I tell new employees, if you come into my office and say, Andrew, I think you're missing the boat, and we're doing this wrong. If you come in and tell me that as the CEO of my business, I might give you a raise because I know I have blind spots. I need people who have different perspective, who have a different, background. They've grown up a different way, and they see things differently, and so they can see it from a different angle. And I know that I have blind spots, and I want that input, and I want diversity of thought. The problem is when you have wildly different worldviews about just, is capitalism good? Is America good? Is hard work good? Then that's where you start to get that tension. And everybody knows what that's like when you have one of those people in your office where you have to walk on eggshells around them. They get offended all the time. People can't do their best work. You can't throw out a bad idea because they're just going to mock you for it. And we all know that like every good idea comes from about 10 bad ideas, and you want
Yeah.
a work environment where people feel free to throw things out there, and they know that they're not going to get curb stomped by emotionally by someone in the office for that. So you need to have some alignment of worldview while still having diversity of thought, different understanding of how the world goes together. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish is, get people where some of the basics, we're on the same page. We don't have to fight over, whether it's good to make money or not in our
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to, grappling with the innovation of changing things in the marketplace.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, well, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, we're going to switch gears just a little bit, and I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, uh, Andrew, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer this well, I need to give a little bit more background.
Okay.
So I'm going to go all the way back until I'm six. Don't worry, it won't be a long story. I'm not going to take you through all the tree houses I built or any of those kind of things. But I had some pretty significant learning disabilities very early on. I'm dyslexic, so everything's backwards. So math
Okay.
is really easy for me. Spelling is a pain in the neck. I got kicked out of kindergarten and ended up being homeschooled because my school said that I was had learning disabilities and there was no way that I was ever going to succeed in school. So my sweet mom homeschools me all the way up. Academics have never been my strong point, but regardless, powered through, made it through school, and I got a job as soon as I got a driver's license at 16 years old because I wanted to work, and I didn't love school and I did like working. I got a job just doing shipping and receiving at a .com in the San Francisco Bay Area where I lived.
Okay.
And it was a great opportunity. I'd show up, I'd work really hard, I could lift boxes, I'd played baseball and various other sports. I was good at carrying boxes around, but not too much more. And there was a gentleman in that business, Visionary Design Systems was the name of the business, named Jim Wiebe. And Jim Wiebe was the head of the training department, and we sold computer automated design software. And Jim kind of saw me working hard in the warehouse, and he took me under his wing, and he said, "Look, Andrew, I'm going to teach you how to do computer automated design software on our own time. And we're going to teach you how to actually be good at communicating, how to train people on how to do this software." And so by the time I was 19 years old, I was starting to travel all over the country teaching these classes on CAD, computer automated design. And I remember it's really hard to get a rental car as a 19-year-old, as a side note. But Jim basically, he really just mentored me all the way through until he was an older gentleman, ended up retiring when I was in my early 20s. But by that time, I was running the sales engineers for the West Coast and Asia for this business. And I know that if Jim had not kind of helped me for those first couple years, you're 16, 17, 18-year-old, you don't know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
he just really was a mentor and someone who dumped into me, and really changed the trajectory of my career. And now I've sold six businesses. I've been the CEO. I have a lot of commercial real estate, but I really point it back to him. And the lesson that I learned from that is if you see a hardworking young person, and there's a lot of griping on the internet about Gen Xers and Gen Ys, and all these younger people, they don't show up, they don't look you in the eye, they don't know how to work hard. Well, maybe you should teach them. Maybe you should actually put your arm around them and help them turn into a better version of themselves. And I saw that with Jim, and I've now hired thousands of employees over the years. And I've always had this mindset of I want to bless my employees. I want my employees to be better people because they work for me. And I want them to be a better employee for their next employer. They're not going to retire working for me, but I want to be that kind of significant stepping stone for them as they
Yeah.
think about their career. And I've hired a lot of very young people, people still in college. I've even hired high schoolers into tech jobs and said, look, I'm not going to pay you a ton of money right now because you're not very useful, but I want to give you a lot of skills and ability that are going to, take you the rest of your life. And I've turned many of those people, by the grace of God and because of their hard work and skill, into executives. Many have gone off and run their own businesses. And I point a lot of that back to Jim Wiebe, who saw a hardworking kid who wasn't the academic genius out in the warehouse working his tail off, and said, "You know what? I'm gonna take that kid into my arms." And if he hadn't done that, who knows? We never know how the story's gonna be written if that step didn't happen, but. It was a very meaningful step to me, and Jim just was an awesome mentor, and I'm very grateful for him.
That is so awesome. And it's kind of, because of Jim and the experience you had with him, and now it's inspired you. And look at what you're doing now. Look at even what Red Balloon is all about is giving people opportunities, not just the people that work under you and in your company, but all the people that you're helping find positions so that they can just use their abilities to the best of their ability and
That's
stuff.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. So
powerful. Wow. So if you look back on this relationship with Jim, so how many years ago was that you first met? You were 16, and
I was
how
16. I am 47 now. So
okay,
do
so
the
we're
math. What,
talking 31
30-ish years?
years.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So this has been a while. So if
Yes.
you look back over, and I'm sure you can probably come up with a number of examples for this. I just want you to come up with one, the first one that comes to mind for you. So if you look back over the last 31 years, and I want you to come up with an example of where you personally you got to make a really profound impact. And I don't know what that looked like, but where even you recognize, like, man, that was phenomenal. And you also know, hands down, that that would have never happened if not for the relationship and the experience that you've had with Jim.
Yeah. Man, there are so many, and this
Yeah.
is, and that's the lesson for all of us is you are kind to one person, and it's a force multiplier because that person's now in a position to be kind to maybe hundreds of people. Every
Yeah.
time you know, work hard to bless someone, and that blessing comes back in on your own head. That's just how the world works, right? When you work hard to do great things for other people, that tends to come back to you. Um, Man, Kevin, there's so many examples of people who, I had an Uber driver who was kind of didn't know what he was going to do. And I actually kind of like befriended him and I said, okay, let's do a little career counseling right here, real time on our way to the airport. I got his contact information. And he was just kind of floating. He didn't know what he was going to do with his life. He was driving Uber, going to community college, was probably going to go get a psychology degree, was looking at $200,000 of student debt in the face of going through this whole thing. And I just, because I have worked with career data for my whole life, or at least for a while, that I was able to say, okay, let's look at what are the, kind of the Venn diagram of your career. And I was describe this to people of, and there's lots of Venn diagrams, but I like to look at the one where you say, okay, what are the things that you're really good at? What are the things you really like to do? And what are the things people will pay you to do so they're valuable to the marketplace, right? And so if you can find things that you really love, like I love to play baseball, but I'm not good enough that anyone will actually pay me to play baseball. So that's probably not a good career opportunity. And there are things that I'm really good at that I don't necessarily love. Like I'm really good at math, but I don't love doing math. I would rather not be a theoretical mathematician or anything like that. So okay, that's probably not a good overlap. And then I've met people. There's things that I could be good at. I've done a lot of sales over my career, and people will pay me a lot of money to do sales. But that's not my favorite thing to do. It's just kind of something that I happen to be good at. People will pay me to do, but I don't love it. Right? I really love running companies. I love managing people. I love developing people. That's what I love. Okay. So anyway, so I take this Uber driver through this, and I pull out a little career assessment on my phone, and then I pull out a bunch of data, and kind of get to the point that he realizes, graphic design, I didn't realize that was a job. I didn't realize that was a career, right? And here we are, we're older, we've been through longer careers, we've been through a lot of different companies. Of course we know graphic design is a career. That's not that complicated. But here's this young kid, this Uber driver, and he's like, I didn't know graphic design was a career. And long story boring, I kind of take him through that, and I'm like, okay, and here's the education that will get you a graphic design job, and you don't have to look at $200,000 in debt to get there, and you'll earn $42 an hour the day you graduate from a community college degree in graphic design, because that's actually well respected in that space. And so we go through this, we exchange contact information, and I kind of continue to check up on him
Uh-huh.
after kind of giving a little free career counseling on the way to the airport. And we continued to talk, and he finished his education. He got a great job. He got married. He started having kids. And he basically was on a totally different life trajectory. And when you're in the middle of that, you're just thinking, well, I'm just trying to help this person right now. And I will tell you, it is just a huge blessing when you can do that for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
You're like, man, that was really cool.
Yeah.
So I just think that's one of probably 100 different examples
Yeah.
of where I know that somebody like Jim Weeby did that for me. And it would be almost criminal of me not to do that for somebody else. And it's deeply rewarding. I wouldn't, I'd recommend it to anybody. If you can take a minute to stop looking at your phone in your Uber, talk to your Uber driver, and see if there's anything you can do to bless that person. After all, they're giving you a ride. Yes, you're paying them, but they're giving you a ride. The least you can do is be kind to them in the meantime. So that's, and obviously I've had lots of people that I employed out of high school and out of college where we've been able to go on similar journeys. But that one really stuck with me just because we kept texting, and he lived in a different city than I did. But he was really grateful for just a little bit of information and somebody caring about him at a critical moment in his life so that he
Yeah.
kind of, it was kind of took a different trajectory that was a real positive one for him.
Yeah. That's awesome. And doing stuff like that, I mean, yeah, yeah, there was the direct interaction between you and this gentleman, but now how many other lives is he going to impact
That's
because
right.
of this through what he does and for the rest of his life?
That's right.
And when we start to look at the ripple effect of some of this, it starts to get pretty mind-boggling. The ripple effect of what you guys are doing at Red Balloon, by putting people, like you said, you shared some of those stories where, now these people, when they find just these great jobs working for great companies where there's such alignment between them. Man, I'll tell you, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, Michael, years ago, and we were talking about this, that the guy, the husband and the father who's doing okay financially versus the one that's struggling. Life in their household is considerably different.
That's right.
Say he's got two boys playing football in the living room. And those boys, they know they shouldn't be playing football in the living room, but you know what? They do it because that's what boys do sometimes, and they break a lamp. And then
Yep.
the one dad who's doing well financially, he's like, whatever, you guys, you know what? You shouldn't be playing football in the living room, but he's going
That's
to go
right.
replace that lamp. Now, the
That's right.
guy that's struggling, though, now it's a big deal to replace that lamp. And so his response to that is considerably different than the guy who just like, whatever, I can go replace that lamp.
That's exactly right.
And
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, one of the businesses I started here in Idaho, our original goal was 50 people earning over $50,000 a year in our town of Moscow, Idaho. Right? We're like, okay, so we want to kind of try and move the needle on this little town. And if I had been in the San Francisco Bay Area, that would be such a rounding error. That would be such a drop in the bucket. It would not have even mattered. But it's interesting when you're in a small college town like Moscow, Idaho, where I live. 50 people earning over $50,000, well, actually, that makes an impact, and it makes an impact in lots of different ways. These are families that now, they can replace the lamp. They can go out to dinner. They can go have a date on occasion. They can go on a vacation on occasion, which is going to give those kids different life experiences to see different things. And so when you make a job for someone, when you strive, and this is the entrepreneurial journey. And George Gilder talks about this all the time. Like, entrepreneurs are giving all the time. We're creating jobs. We're creating value in the marketplace. We're, hammer and tong, make this thing work. And lo and behold, you are doing this deep blessing for these people. Well, it turns out that it works out really well when you do this because one of my great joys in life is eating. Which, if I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but I love to eat. So, I'm in Moscow, Idaho, and we don't have very good restaurants. And I'm like, one of my theses was if I create a bunch of high paying jobs, we're going to have better restaurants because trickle down economics and all that. You're going to create wealth in individuals. They're going to have excess income and they're going to go out to eat. And then that'll support a restaurant industry. And lo and behold, we have great restaurants in Moscow, Idaho now. So I was
that's
also,
awesome.
at the end of the day, I was just self serving. I just wanted better restaurants. So I went out and created a bunch of jobs. So yeah, 50 at 50 was one of my first goals for one of my businesses. How do we create prosperity for individuals, knowing that it really changes the lives of people?
Yeah. Yeah. That is fantastic. Wow. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I'm sure there's a number of people listening to this going, man, Kevin, I really love Andrew. I love how Andrew shows up. And maybe there's some people that are maybe on the employer side of this equation or the potential employee side of this
That's right.
equation that are like, Kev, I'm gonna go check out Red Balloon. and so I wanna thank you so much for taking the time to share this. But I also want to give you it's not redballoon.com. We need to make sure people
That's
got
right.
the
That's
right
right.
address.
That's right. It's redballoon.work,
Yeah,
because I know that work is actually good for people, and sounded a little much too much like communism to me, and we don't want communism. We want hard work. But yeah, it's redballoon.work, and .com was taken. So it's redballoon.work. And there's a ton of resources on there for job seekers. There's an employee bill of rights that was written by our labor lawyer, and we have a labor lawyer on staff. In fact, her name's Laura, which makes her Laura the labor lawyer, which is kind of fun to say.
that
So
is
Laura the
fun to
labor
say,
lawyer,
isn't it?
yeah, wrote our employee bill of rights and responsibilities, because the founding fathers knew that rights and responsibilities went together. And so Laura wrote this just amazing document that's for free. It's a free resource on our website. And if you're in a work environment where you're like, what are my rights? What am I allowed to say no to? What am I allowed to do? You should go check out the Employee Bill of Rights and Responsibilities. It's been a great resource for many tens of thousands of job seekers around the country. And so that's the first thing. And then if you're an employer and you want to hire people who are going to have a huge positive cultural impact on your business, redballoon.work is the place to hire those people. We have a job board, we have a recruitment service, and then we have an applicant tracking system, kind of a hiring software that allows you to kind of automate the entire hiring process so that you can be more efficient and effective in finding and hiring great people who are going to make you money, right? Because what's kind of cool about this whole thing is we're all still capitalists. We want to bless people. We want to be kind to people, but we also think that one of the ways to do that is to make money and prosper. And so that's really what we're trying to do at Red Balloon is how do we get you people so your business will just explode, right? If your people are your most important asset, then you should put the time and energy into making sure that you get the right people, because if you do, it will make you more money. And I think redballoon.work is part of that story for a lot of businesses. And if you're listening, I hope it's hopefully going to be part of your story soon.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Really appreciate you. And I'm totally stoked to get this out there and share this with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Kevin. And I hope everybody has an amazing day.
Absolutely.